Let me start by thanking you all for joining us this morning for a very special session. As you can see, we are talking about the Quad this morning in the context of a report that ORF and East West Center, our colleagues in the DC, have worked on for a while, and we wanted to release it. We were very grateful that the Joint Secretary Americas and the three embassies and the two embassies and the High Commission decided to join us for this very special session, and we are very grateful. We are very grateful for all of you to join us this morning, this hot summer morning, for what I hope can be an interesting conversation around the Quad, its evolution, its accomplishments, and where I think the four key interlocutors see it moving as we move into the greater turbulence in the Indo-Pacific, and the global order and the regional order continues to evolve. So thank you all once again. I will just give the floor to Satu, who has been our partner in crime for this report, so he can give you some context about how we decided and why we decided to work on this, and what perhaps continues to be a key area of work for both of our institutions, and also from the perspective of the four countries involved. This is certainly something that we need to be working much more carefully on. So Satu, over to you for a brief contextual overview.
Thank you. Can you hear me in the back? Okay. Well, good morning to everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Satu Lemay. I'm the Vice President of the East-West Center. And we've been delighted to work with ORF and Harsh and his team on producing this report. It's part of an ongoing collaboration that we've had with the East-West Center. And I should explain why ORF, why this report, and a little bit, so I don't get in trouble, a brief promo advert for the East-West Center. The East-West Center is a congressionally established institution. It's set up under U.S. public law, and it's partly funded through a congressional appropriation in the State Department Foreign Operations budget. Our mission set is fairly clear. It's to promote U.S.-Asia relations between peoples and governments, between the United States and Asia through collaborative study, research, and exchange. And we do a number of programs. If you're interested in any of our programs, publications, fellowships, opportunities, I urge you to go on the website. Why ORF? Not only because ORF is one of the premier institutions, think tanks in India and the world for that matter, but also because our governance structure at the East-West Center is appointed partly by the Secretary of State, 5 members, 5 by the Governor of the state of Hawaii, where the East-West Center has its headquarters, and those 10 pick 5 members from the region. And we're very honored and grateful that Dr. Samir Saran, the president of ORF, is also on our board. And so that's another connection. Why Quad? Very briefly, and we have such a distinguished panel to discuss all the details, Harsh and I worked together on the first Quad dialogue at Raisina, which took up some of the issues. And at the East-West Center, as part of our work on the Indo-Pacific strategy, and you can see our report on the website, the 1-year assessment of the Indo-Pacific strategy, we've been systematically looking at alliances and multilateral institutions in Asia and how they're functioning. So this is part of a larger project that the East-West Center is doing with the State Department and with institutions throughout the region on looking at the state of U.S.-Asia relations, both in terms of large macro policy, but in terms of specific tool sets and tool kits that we use in the region. And I've noted that we have sort of 5 things we've been navigating over the last 20 years that we're marking and looking forward. One is the sort of status of the Quad from being a sort of ad hoc arose arrangement to sort of being reposed, then revived, and now getting greater and greater relevance, we hope. The second is sort of its public goods focus and delivery, which you've heard a lot about, and I hope we'll hear more about. And as you know, it was quite exceptional when it started because it was a response to an event. As you well remember, the 2004 December tsunami. But now it's systematically creating an agenda. So that's the second navigation framework. The third is the role of other actors in the region, particularly the People's Republic of China, and how that has shaped and affected the navigation of Quad's development. The fourth is the priority of the Indo-Pacific in each of our country's foreign policies and the sustainability of that priority on the Indo-Pacific. And finally, how, again, as I started my comments, how Quad fits as a bridge between our alliance system and our multilateral and engagement system. And Quad, in my view, is one of the more interesting tool sets or tools in our toolkit because it's not fully an alliance nor purely a traditional multilateralism, and it's bridging those things. So what are the issues going forward? I think we touched on in this report, and I hope you'll see kind of five. One was, to what extent should the Quad be securitized? And how much and in what ways? The second is institutionalization, the question of just how formal it becomes, and how formal should it be, and how does that affect its functioning? The third is operationalizing, that is delivering. We have a great agenda, but the question is sustainability and delivery of the public goods. Fourth is integrating the Quad not only amongst our partnerships in the Quad, but also as it relates to other institutions that are rising, partners of the Blue Pacific, Indian Ocean organizations, all kinds of other proliferating multilateralism in the region in this very contested and quite fragmented international system. And then finally, how we can coordinate with regional countries and regional institutions on public goods delivery. So this is just the framework we've used for this report, and I wanted to set that into context for the panel discussion. But again, we're very delighted to work with Harsh and ORF, and very grateful to this wonderful panel of our colleagues from the official diplomatic services to talk about it. Thank you so much, Harsh.
Thank you. Thank you, Satu. And I'll just reiterate some of the points that Satu made in the sense that Quad in some ways has become emblematic of the world order that we are living in, where you have greater fluidity, and so you have a rise of the minilaterals. In fact, one of the earliest minilaterals in the Indo-Pacific to define, again, the journey that the Indo-Pacific and the wider institutional frameworks there have taken. So I think one of the questions for ORF, as was mentioned, is what happens to the wider institutionalization in the region and beyond? What kind of questions we are asking about the kind of institutions that we want, whether we want formal, whether we want more informal, whether we want more fluid institutions. And I think those questions continue to remain very, very relevant as we look ahead at the Indo-Pacific landscape. Not only Indo-Pacific, but also I think the wider global order as greater fragmentation remains with us, and countries continue to try to retain their autonomy in deciding how flexible they want to be in their foreign policies. The other issue, of course, is what happens to others, like platforms of like-minded countries, and how can Quad coordinate with them perhaps its actions. And I think that is another point that we have made, or we have tried to show that, look, there are a number of now minilaterals, informal platforms available. Can Quad work with them? What are the possibilities there, and how should we think about some of these issues which continue to resonate with a number of countries in the region, but they have different priorities. So we have been looking, for example, AUKUS, and now there is Quad that is being talked about. So there are a number of other platforms that are emerging. What can Quad do to not only sustain its own institutionalization, but also engagement with other like-minded partners? And then, of course, the question of delivery, as was pointed out. What happens to it, and how can we ensure the sustainability of a process that has been very ambitious, that has generated a lot of excitement, but how can we continue to deliver going forward? So I think a number of questions on the table, and we are very grateful that most of these questions perhaps will be answered by the panel, not by us. So I think that's why we are very grateful. But before I give the floor to the four speakers, can we just have a formal launch of the report as it were, so that we can just get on with our business? So thank you. So Satu, if you can just join. May I now just invite Sri Nagaraj Naidu for his remarks, Joint Secretary Americas, MEA. Sir.
Patricia, Nick, Takashi, Dr. Limai, I've not met you before, but Harsh, We've known you for some time. I'm extremely delighted here to join all of you today this morning for the release of this report, the 2 decades of the Quad, a joint effort of the East-West Center and the ORF. The release of this report is extremely timely considering that this is India's Quad presidency. I always call the Quad, it's the child of a tsunami. Born in the midst of a turmoil, the Quad traces its genesis to a spontaneous response of 4 liberal democracies, which witnessed one of the largest humanitarian assistance and disaster relief efforts in the history of this planet. The concerted effort showcased the potential of the Quad, which after a false start, formalized into a leaders-level grouping 3 years ago. We owe a lot of the Quad's progress to the late Japanese Prime Minister, Shinzo Abe, who is rightly called the Quad father of this grouping. An early and a very passionate advocate of the Quad, late Prime Minister Abe's seminal speech, The Confluence of the Two Seas, delivered to the Indian Parliament in the year 2007, sowed the seeds of this group, which is all about delivering public goods, but over the last few years has gradually come to pack in much more. With a shared commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific that is inclusive, prosperous, and resilient, the Quad has today acquired a momentum and salience with regular dialogues, tabletop exercises, and workshops both in 1.5 and 2.0 formats. With greater alignment on strategic concerns, issuing joint statements at summit-level gatherings has now been formalized. Today, the Quad has ambitions from decarbonizing the shipping value chains to providing dependable health and space security, from cybersecurity to undersea cable connectivity, from deployment of clean energy projects to securing trusted telecom technologies from trusted vendors, from popularizing STEM education in the Indo-Pacific through fellowships, to substantial conversations around boosting logistics and reconnaissance coordination. Friends, among a number of other activities, the Malabar exercises not only reaffirms the ability of the 4 navies of the Quad to operate together as an integrated force, but also underlines the shared commitment of the grouping to maritime security and regional stability through collaborative training, enhanced interoperability, and mutual understanding for promoting peace and security in the region. As far as structuring of the Quad is concerned, we always pride ourselves that a Quad is an agile coalition with built-in flexibility, offering us the opportunity to tailor the group's agenda and scope, and the ability to quickly convene to coordinate responses to international events, while continuing important discussions on more sensitive security concerns. It is also less important as to what the Quad does, because the true value of the Quad lies in what it signals and what it symbolizes. And more importantly, its ability, as I said, to restructure and respond to changing assessments. While all the 4 partners consider the flexible nature of the grouping an asset, the Quad is also undergoing a degree of deeper integration and formalization, especially through the creation of the working groups, the broadening and the deepening of its agenda, and the appointment of Sherpas, sous-Sherpas, and senior officials to give the Quad a form which ensures constant guidance and continued performance. The working group structure has now expanded the number of government agencies and individuals involved in its operations. This has helped the constituency of supporters for the Quad to grow beyond security policy circles in each of the countries. Friends, the Quad has emphasized cooperation with countries in 3 key Indo-Pacific subregions: Southeast Asia, the Pacific Islands, and the Indian Ocean Rim, and has expressly acknowledged the centrality of their respective multilateral forums, the ASEAN, the Pacific Islands Forum, and the Indian Ocean Rim Association. Outside of the Quad framework, Canberra, New Delhi, Tokyo, and Washington also independently maintain regional presence that reflect each country's unique priorities and interests. The added value of the bloc is that in its ability to capitalize on each member's regional initiatives to maximize the efficiency and impact of joint initiatives. Friends, the Quad is very cognizant that no single country can tackle all regional security challenges by itself, and it is imperative to pool resources and capabilities to address these challenges. What the Quad is also doing of late is clearly and consistently communicating what we can and cannot do, and how the Quad-driven initiatives fit into an already complex geopolitical and development landscape. Doing so will help manage inevitable misunderstandings that tend to come with new initiatives, and more so, prevents the Quad from over-promising and under-delivering. We are proactively communicating our intent. The Quad is here to assist, to partner, to complement, and not to compete, to supersede or replace any existing regional architecture, security or otherwise. This has to a large extent quelled apprehensions from countries in the Indo-Pacific regarding the true nature of Quad's intentions in the region itself. According to the State of Southeast Asia 2024 survey report, the prevailing sense among 40.9% of the ASEAN respondents is that cooperation with Quad is likely to bring benefits as compared to 31% in 2023. Colleagues, we look forward to bettering this record, and India looks forward to hosting a very successful Quad summit later this year. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. May I now request Patricia Lucena, Deputy Chief of Mission, U.S. Embassy, for her remarks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, dear Quad partners and colleagues, it's always a pleasure to meet and discuss a group that's so important as the Quad. And I'm happy to be here for the launch of the Observer Research Foundation and East-West Center report on 2 decades of the Quad, diplomacy and cooperation in the Indo-Pacific. I'm going to go home and read it cover to cover, I promise. So the report provides a comprehensive analysis of the Quad's evolution, its diplomatic endeavors, collaborative efforts, and the implications of its strategic engagements on regional stability. President Biden described the Quad's ambitions in June of last year when hosting Prime Minister Modi at the White House. And he said, decades from now, people will look back and say the Quad bent the arc of history toward the global good. That's what we're trying to do. That's the reason that we all believe in the Quad. The Quad is one of the Indo-Pacific's premier groupings, with 4 leading democracies joining together to make progress on the most salient challenges to our region. As External Affairs Minister Jaishankar explained in his book, Why Bharat Matters, the Quad's prominence and success underlines the importance of values in international relations. The Quad brings together 4 countries with a positive and practical agenda to address the region's most urgent challenges. And let's be honest, there are many. From the beginning, the Quad has been underpinned by our shared vision of an Indo-Pacific region that is free, open, secure, and prosperous. The pace and scope of our work as Quad partners is at an all-time high. In the past 3 years, our Quad leaders have convened annually, and our Quad foreign ministers also meet regularly. We look forward to India hosting the Quad Summit this year. The strategic and geographic fit among our countries provides a remarkable platform for cooperation. The Quad also complements and supports the centrality of ASEAN to the Indo-Pacific region. It is clear the Quad only enhances the incredible partnership the United States and India have built. Just as the United States and India are both better off when we work together, collaboration between the 4 Quad countries is mutually reinforcing, multiplying our power to produce substantive benefits. that include to uphold peace and prosperity. The Quad is helping our fellow Indo-Pacific nations better understand the threats at sea through maritime domain awareness. We saw the Quad Maritime Working Group take place in Australia just last week, and our 4 countries explored best practices in countering illicit maritime activities and enhancing cooperation in the maritime domain. The Quad countries are 4 maritime democracies, and we have much to offer Indo-Pacific partners to better safeguard the region. Benefits also include our shared prosperity. By facilitating investment and deepening supply chain resiliency and upholding democratic standards in technology, we will enhance prosperity. Whether it's diversifying and deepening our supply chains among the Quad countries, encouraging our private sectors to innovate, or identifying trusted funding for infrastructure, we are building a Quad-led ecosystem that will drive the region's prosperity over the long term. We can't forget about the planet. By addressing climate change and supporting resilient infrastructure, the Quad is supporting regional and international coalitions in addressing this crisis. That is why we collaborate on green shipping and ports, resilient infrastructure, exchanging climate information, and capacity building in support of implementation of the Paris Agreement. We see benefits for the people. By preparing for future pandemics and other public health emergencies and bringing the people of our 4 remarkable countries closer through people-to-people exchanges. As the ORF East-West Center rightly points out, it was, and our colleague, our Indian colleague, so adroitly put it, it was the tragedy of the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami that first galvanized the Quad to join action. Again, during the tragedy of the COVID-19 pandemic, when so many lives were lost too soon, the Quad provided 800 million safe and effective COVID-19 vaccine doses globally. And just last week, in a renewed effort, the Quad closely coordinated in delivering assistance after the Papua New Guinea landslide of May 24th that killed more than 2,000 people. Officials of the 4 countries on the ground are in close touch with one another on a near constant basis, exchanging information and aligning support for Port Moresby. This is just the highlight reel of what our countries are doing together. There is so much more when you dig into the details. The United States envisions the Quad will be a crucial pillar of the Indo-Pacific's regional architecture and a vehicle to uphold the rules-based order. The Quad is poised to bring to bear the combined strengths of some of the world's largest economies and most dynamic democracies to address regional and global challenges. Our world is safer and more secure thanks to the work of the Quad.
Let me give the floor to Takashi Ariyoshi, Deputy Chief of Mission, Embassy of Japan.
Thank you very much, Professor Pant, Professor Limei, and Mr. Naidu, and my fellow DCMs, Patricia and Nick, distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen. It's very great pleasure to join you all for the launch of the report, 2 Decades of the Quad, Diplomacy and Cooperation in the Indo-Pacific. I commend all involved for these efforts and in compiling such a comprehensive report on the history and current activities of the Quad. So if you read this report, you can easily grasp the recent developments as well as the history. My job today is to add some value to this event. So I'd like to focus my remarks on the visions of the Quad and its strategic implication. And it is true that the Quad cooperation began at the Sumatra earthquake in 2004. But we must also admit that after 2007, its activities have somewhat, went down. The Quad in its current form is a framework based on the vision of the late Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. In 2012, he wrote an article, his vision for Asia's democratic security diamond, urging closer cooperation between the 4 countries, Japan, Australia, India, and the United States. So why did Prime Minister Abe insist on this framework? In my view, he believed in the strengths of the four countries. And if we wish to ensure peace, security, and prosperity, especially in the Pacific region, we need to cooperate. So the Quad members share the fundamental values such as freedom, democracy, and the rule of law. Based on these fundamental values, we share common strategic interests in every aspect of security, economic relations, and human resource development. So he believed if four of us combine, this democratic liberal value will prevail. And he coined a brand new geopolitical concept called the Indo-Pacific and projected his vision to keep this vast area free and open. So do you know how much he insisted on establishing a Quad? I became director for India in 2015, and I still remember Prime Minister insist on having or strengthening efforts to establish Quad. And we had to report where we are. However, we had no immediate process for the Quad in this higher level now. So we need to advance various trilaterals actually in view of elevating the Quad in the end. So actually the first Japan, India, Australia trilateral vice foreign ministerial meeting was held in June 2015 in New Delhi actually. From Japan, Vice Minister Saiki participated, former ambassador to India from 2011 to 2012. From Australia, Peter Varghese participated. He was also former High Commissioner to Delhi. And as you know, India, Dr. Jaishankar was the Foreign Secretary. So these three old friends discussed strategic issue, maybe some groundwork. So we did all this kind of a groundwork on every combination of the trilateral, bilateral. So in the end, we succeeded in having Quad Foreign Ministerial in 2019, and all the history is now written, everything here, so I don't have to repeat. So, but this Quad is efforts of the, tremendous efforts by Prime Minister Abe and other leaders of the four countries. So another aspect I'd like to highlight is that Quad is underpinned by the strengths of the matrix of bilateral and trilateral relationship that comprises it. Just to take Japan and India bilateral as an example, in 2003, we have 3 summit meetings. Prime Minister Modi visited Tokyo in May. Prime Minister Kishida came March and November for G20, September for G20. So through this robust, frequent contacts, each of us developed very strong relations, defense relations, deep economic cooperation, investment, supply chain, etc. The Quad can synergize and leverage the power of these bilateral cooperation through strategic guidance by the leaders and policy coordination at the various working level. So what role of the Quad in this time to come? In my view, there are 2. The first and foremost is the very first thing I said at the beginning. The role of Quad is to maintain international order based on the rule of law, including the Nation Charter, and to oppose any use of threat of force or allow change of status quo by force, and realize a free and open Indo-Pacific. Every time you read the joint statement, these kind of things are written, our fundamental belief is reaffirmed. The second, the Quad should and will continue to bring tangible benefits to the countries in the region. So the 6 working groups established at the leader level that the OR report outlines: in-house climate, critical and emerging technology, space, infrastructure, and so forth. We will continue to strengthen our commitment on these issues. So in short, the Quad is and will continue to be forces for good, as Prime Minister Modi often says. So this year, it's Prime Minister Modi's turn to host the next Quad meeting, a summit meeting in India, and Japan will host the foreign ministers meeting. So we're ready to work with India and other Quad partners to prepare for a successful meeting. And we do our best to make this Quad framework stronger. So in conclusion, I extend my felicitations on the launch of this important report and look forward to working with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you kindly, Nick McCaffrey, Acting High Commissioner, Australian High Commission, New Delhi. Sir.
Look, thanks very much, Harsh, and can I congratulate you and the East-West Centre on the production of this report. Unlike Pat, I have been through it extensively, as you can see. So thank you for the work that was done on that. And look, it's terrific to see such interest in the Quad here, a packed room here at the Orf. So again, thank you very much for hosting us. There are some things I'd like to say and there are some things I have to say. But can I just recognise I'm joined here by Eleanor Hale from our political section and Sahali, who's one of our local staff members here, and they track the Quad closely. It's a key priority within our mission. Many of you will know that the Australia-India relationship has been transformed in the last decade. Always a bit suspicious about public officials that use words like transformed. It sounds a little like an exaggeration, but in this case, it neatly captures what has happened to Australia's relationship with India. We are doing so much more together across the relationship in new areas and old areas, broadening and deepening, and that is something that we are confident will occur under the newly elected government led by Narendra Modi. In terms of the Quad, I've congratulated you on the launch of this important and timely report. And look, we think it's going to play, it's already playing, it's brought us here together today, a useful role in encouraging conversation around the Quad's vital role as an entity for positive coordination across the Indo-Pacific region. Cleverly using the 20-year anniversary as a hook, it does force us all to reflect and think about how far the Quad has come. You've heard from the distinguished speakers to my right about how this grouping started its life, and now we think about what it represents today. And for us, it's a word that we use a bit in Australia, a consequential diplomatic partnership. Very important, significant diplomatic partnership which is developing regular patterns of engagement by our leaders and foreign ministers in that grouping, with deepening habits of cooperation on issues of shared concern and interest to the Indo-Pacific region. I think one of the strengths of the report is the way it highlights the Quad's tangible contributions to the region and the positive impact that we can have when the four countries together. I know Indians love cricket, and we love cricket in Australia. It's like four talented cricketers playing by themselves. If you bring them together, they will play cricket to a higher degree. So the partnership between the four Quad countries reflects, as we all know, this significant strategic convergence of interests in a world that is changing around us. It enriches the network of bilateral relationships our four countries have developed with each other and across the region. It seeks to advance our vision for openness, stability and prosperity across the Indo-Pacific as a whole. We in Australia are seeking to strengthen regional partnerships in support of a strategic balance in the Indo-Pacific, where all countries can exercise their agency, free from coercion and the threat of force, where no country dominates and no country is dominated, and above all, where sovereignty is respected. The Quad, I would contend, Australia would contend, is demonstrating its commitment to these principles by leveraging our respective strengths and resources to create choices for regional partners. Important that the Quad continues to remain transparent about its agenda and its actions, and that we continue to do what we say we will do. Quad partners, of course, bring unique perspectives, partnerships, interests to the table. And when we come together, we strengthen our collective offering to the region. As you will know, the Quad, with a combined population of almost 2 billion people and a GDP of $35 trillion. The Quad continues to listen to the needs of the region. It's important that it does so that we can all contribute to our shared future. Working, as I said, transparently and in open dialogue to implement a practical agenda that delivers sustained economic and social value, upholding the principles that underpin regional prosperity, and at the same time contributing to global priorities by advancing the UN 2030 agenda and sustainable development goals. And working alongside existing institutions, ASEAN, the Pacific Islands Forum, Indian Ocean Rim Association, to support their efforts and, again, advanced shared interests. We're cooperating with Quad partners to address key regional challenges. You've heard some of that from the previous speakers, including climate change, which is, of course, a big global challenge, but of particular concern to the Pacific that sits to our east. Climate change, humanitarian assistance and disaster response. Again, the Pacific is an area of the world that often suffers from natural disasters. Critical emerging technologies and counter-terrorism. Foreign Minister Wong, for example, as Foreign Minister Wong said recently, Australia is supporting cooperation with Quad partners, as you said, Pat, to assist our nearest neighbour, PNG, as it recovered from that landslide recently. The Quad itself making tangible contributions in the Indo-Pacific through our ambitious public goods agenda, delivering upon the significant commitments made by leaders when they met in Hiroshima last year. Many of you will remember Australia was down to host, but given President Biden's inability to travel to Australia, we took our hosting of the Quad to Japan, to Hiroshima. And in closing, I guess I'd just highlight, as others have done, the importance of continuing momentum, India hosting a Quad Leaders Summit, Japan hosting a Quad Foreign Ministers meeting. These meetings, again, allow us to underline our shared vision for the region, and supported by deep and regular engagement between our four systems. So in closing, can I just come back to the title of the report, 2 Decades of the Quad Diplomacy and Cooperation in the Indo-Pacific, which neatly sums up the Quad's purpose. And I'm looking forward to the conversation, discussion, and indeed hearing the views from people who are here in the room, and hearing your perspectives on the Quad today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thanks to all the 4 panelists for their views on the centrality of the Quad as they foresee from their vantage points. Since cricket was mentioned, it's interesting to see cricket also moving to the US and gaining traction there. I think Japan now has to be brought in. So yes, so we look forward to that, and perhaps next report, Satu can have a section on sports. So osmosis, yes. So let's do that. But thank you for the remarks, and let me open this up. I think this is a useful point to open this up for your questions, comments, observations, the evolution of Quad as the report highlights. And we have taken, I think it is important to understand that we are talking about the decade here, which is an important aspect. It was not formalized then. So I think a lot of the informal activity that happens as part of this, and a lot of the bilateral, trilateral interactions that happen as part of this grouping is also very important to understand, because that has been the real strength. And all bilateral relationships, I think if you see in this in this within this Quad have also seen an acceleration and a real deepening and widening of the relationships. I think India, Australia was talked about, but it is equally applicable to other relationships as well. So with that, let me open it up for your question. Please keep it brief and introduce yourselves. So I'll start from the back.
Well, basically, my question is to all the panelists, is regarding that we are finding that there's some other, blogs and some other, forums also coming up, for example, AUKUS and etc., which basically rely on traditional ecosystem of, countries, for example, Australia and US a lot more, have got much more, strong relationship over there, and they exchange, intelligence, lot of technology, submarines, nuclear submarines, etc. So do you feel that in the future, there will be, Quad can face some kind of competition from that, because it might lose its relevance, or it might basically not be, because recently we are seeing that even Philippines and some other countries are also trying to come into. So basically there is a feeling that US is basically trying to basically compete with these forums for the relevance in the future. So that might pose some kind of a challenge for because India also has to look for towards its trade relationship with China, etc. So there will be some kind of so basically these things have to be looked in from a lot more of perspective as far as future is concerned.
Can you introduce yourself also?
I'm Vinesh Sharma.
Good afternoon. My name is Mrityunjay. I am from Jamia Millia Islamia University, research scholar. My question to Mr. Takashi Ariyoshi: after post-India Japan civil nuclear agreement, where is the pace of development towards fast breeder nuclear reactors is going between India-Japan cooperation? Because as far as energy needs are concerned, I believe this should be the area of highlight and concern between both the countries. Thanks.
Good afternoon. My name is Prashasti. I'm a doctoral candidate at Jamia Millia Islamia University, and my topic for PhD is regarding the dynamics of diplomat training in India and its implications for conflict resolution. So my question to the panel is regarding what, if you could tell us some of the joint training programs or initiatives that are being taken into consideration for the diplomats of the member states. Thank you.
Doing some field work here.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So I think unless there are any more questions at the back. Okay, let me just give the floor to the panelists first.
I would like to address the gentleman's question about competition for the Quad. First of all, being American, I say competition is healthy. So, you got to up your game. If nobody competes with you, it's easy to get lazy. It's easy to get complacent. So we welcome competition. I'm sure my Quad partners feel the same way. But I think it was you, Nagaraj, that said one of the most important things the Quad is trying to do is to give countries options and choice. We don't force the Quad's assistance on anyone, but I think it's very important for especially smaller countries to be able to say, if I'm feeling pressure about something, I might have another option of countries to assist me, or people I can talk to, or someone I can consult about what else could be done, or how I could, fill in the blank, fund this. So I think that's a crucial part of the Quad that maybe we don't highlight as much as we should.
Just to add, the Pacific is an area, I've mentioned that 3 times now. The Pacific is an area of great interest to us, and having other parties, other countries, Quad members in this case, come in and look to provide support, solutions, training, whatever it is from our perspective a very good thing. The needs are great in that part of the world, and indeed across the whole Indo-Pacific region. So it just makes sense. I know I use that flippant, 4 cricketers playing individually, coming together, being more effective. But that's what we're seeking to do here. The Pacific is a particular area of interest to us, and India is doing more in the Pacific. That's a development that we strongly welcome. Japan and the US are engaged there with us. So that's how I respond or make that comment.
No, just to supplement, I think, look, today we live in a world of multiple choices, and it's good to have the freedom to operate in a world of choice. I don't think we should see this thing through a lens of competition. Friends come together because they have a certain alignment of interests. So I think the proliferation of minilateral, plurilateral groupings should not be seen as one against the other, because each of them is fundamentally serving some purpose. And you'll be surprised sometimes that these groups could also align many a time on other issues that perhaps is not very black and white. So my appeal would be to not to look at this thing from a pure lens of competition. I think the choice that today the world is seeing, as long as you're aligning, there are, for example, the Quad works on a bunch of ideas, and we also feel that, look, these ideas are workable because our thoughts are aligned and the way we operate is getting increasingly aligned. So we find a lot of space to do. And I keep repeating, in all my, space statements about the Quad is that, it's great to work in this group because of the flexibility it allows. Everybody can be themselves. That allows for very good conversations. And we are very appreciative of what each partner does. For example, the kind of work Australia does in the Pacific is something we really appreciate, because it is easier for them to deliver something. Say, for example, in Papua New Guinea, what happened recently, each of us had contributed in our own ways. But we also feel that, say, if Australia is doing something, we all come together and support Australia because our thoughts are aligned. That, okay, somebody is impacted by an emergency situation. So can we be supportive? So I think choice is good. Minilaterals, plurilaterals is the way the world is functioning. Just because the 4 Quad members have come together does not mean that partners in this small grouping can't partner with others beyond the group. So I don't think none of us are really worried that such a thing is happening. Rather, it's a good thing that's happening. It's healthy. And that's how the world is operating today. Thanks.
So I just answer some of the question regarding nuclear cooperation as well as some of the energy issues. And frankly, it's, United States, Japan have been doing civil nuclear cooperation from 2005. We did agreement 2016. But since then, I think the energy situation surrounding us have a little bit changed. So the progress of the nuclear cooperation was not advancing as much. But now, what is more important, we have multiple choices for energy. I think and also climate change is becoming more important. And now under the Quad, we have Q-Champ. Each of us are doing multiple choices of energies. Japan is promoting this hydrogen, ammonia, reducing emission from the natural gas. But Australia also interested in clean energy supply chain. And India also, you have a good solar energy and also hydrogen production process and so forth. So, and then of course, United States has also maritime decarbonization and lots of interest in this kind of area. So we have nowadays much more wider options that we can tackle and also offer to our regions. So I think this kind of a closer comparing note is a much important way to settle our energy issues. Thank you.
As far as education and the opportunities that are actual people-to-people ties, the Quad is really a people-centered partnership. That's what we're looking at. What do the people of the Quad need and want? What do our extended partners looking for to get? And oftentimes it's some kind of education partnership, research, upskilling. It's endless, the things that we can do and the expertise that we can draw on from a whole range of different countries, and including countries outside the Quad, but in the region. Like our health partnerships, we do a lot of upskilling on disease containment, coordination of many things, just talking about things as basic as travel and trade bans. But there are specific education opportunities or fellowship opportunities that the Quad sponsored. So there are Quad STEM Fellows, which brings together the next generation of scientists and technologists from the Quad and ASEAN to study STEM in the United States. And then the last Leaders Summit committed to supporting 1,800 new Quad infrastructure fellowships for individuals from across the Indo-Pacific, which will support infrastructure practitioners to design, build, and manage quality infrastructure in their home countries. So, and I'm sure that as new ideas come up, we will be looking at expanding the kinds of education and partnerships that we have been able to offer between universities and research institutions. It's basically a limit of our imagination and funding, so.
Yeah, my concern about is China. We Quad members are taking seriously this China issue. USA is also equally concerned the way it's superseding it in future, and India is also having a very big issue for border. So why not to negotiate in 4 members so that we can deal this China in a big way, so that it's not always a pain in the neck. Second one is the AI GPT is much more dangerous than climate change. We have to have cooperation all the 4 members so that we can deal this also income with the climate. And third one is the vaccine. We had a big issue of corona and we could not do anything, and we should take it as a war and disease simultaneously in a casual way. And fourth one is the cricket. I think Japan can take it seriously because they are very serious people and they make a huge money. It's a big issue. Now USA understood this thing, and it can be a big issue for a business also, fun also, and we can have fun when we deal all this situation. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Pavan. My question is, in fact, regarding to the panel, regarding the criticism which is raised against Quad, is it Asian NATO? Second thing is that, in fact, what is the, in fact, of a probability that will not make the fate of CETO? Thank you.
Thanks to ORF. In medicine, ORT, I mean oral radiation therapy is a lifeline. Thanks for giving lifeline to India as well, along with all the developed nations. The Abe's kid is transformed into a young adult. Thanks to the nourishment for Uncle Joe and Cam, and in Modi we call Uncle Modi ji or Kaka Elbow. So now the child is adult. So the quest for Quad should be to quell the quarrels as well as quarantine problems. Not by militarily, only by diplomatically, I will rather say diplomatically. And diplomacy begins in the UNSC and ends in High Street through ORF. Could you please help us? This is election time, we want the Democrats to win. Of course, Alba will agree. We want the UNSC to transform so that real democracy will be there. The Americans are the custodians of democracy and peace-loving, Japanese. And the other thing is, as I said, in the high street diplomacy is exchange. You rightly said about the, fellowships. We want the talented people, not only from India, PNG, everybody to come to Iowa to study like you, so that we can compete. More people will be here to compete with Harsh Pand and Limai. So we want Americans, you are the deciding factor. Let Uncle Sam and Uncle Joe and Cam transform the UNSC so that the world will be peaceful and rich as well, prosperity. If in Palestine, if you stop the war, you will be the beneficiary.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Shireen, and thank you for the discussion. So my question is to Patricia, and all other panelists are also free to comment on that thing. So when we talk about these conferences, like you people feel like it's a ritual to talk about this global warming, climate change, sustainability, green things, all the things. But when we go through the data, the on-ground realities, your country, Patricia, your country and your citizens are far more using plastic than our entire nation. Like we are 1.4 billion and yours is like a smaller fraction. Your citizens use more plastic, your use more plastic. They are like the major fraction, the major percentage of polluting the whole globe. So, I mean, what you are going to do to this? I mean, are you going to do something for that, or you are working for those companies?
Well, we have a lot of questions, different kinds of questions, but whatever you feel.
Because I think I counted about 10 different issues that were raised there, so I'm not going to try and go through all of them. But just going back to a question about the diplomatic training, Australia, for younger citizens of our 4 countries, Australia does have a program for a couple of countries where we bring them into our foreign ministry and give them some experience there. We don't do it with India, but it's a good idea, and I hope in the years ahead we do look at that. And it's something that certainly when I was working on the India desk in Australia, we certainly had some very working level thinking about that. But that's a good idea. And then the other thing was China was mentioned, and I just wanted to make a couple of points there. Some of you will have seen that the Chinese Premier is visiting Australia from Saturday to Tuesday. Our Prime Minister has, made some public statements about that. And look, I thought, if I may, I'd just read a couple of paragraphs just to quote him, because I know China is often raised in terms of the Quad. So I'm sort of moving away from that and just talking about the Australia-China relationship, but it will help people understand a little bit if you hear the Prime Minister's voice about how he thinks about the bilateral relationship with China. So please indulge me just for a minute or two. The PM, Australian Prime Minister, has written just in the last day or so, we've been very upfront. China and Australia are 2 very different nations with different systems of governments and different ways of looking at the world. Points of contention are inevitable. What matters is how you manage them. I take the view that whatever our differences might be, it's always better when we can deal with each other directly through dialogue. This is how we firmly and calmly call out unacceptable risks, for example, to Australian Navy personnel on duty in international waters. This is not always a smooth process or a swift one, but while issuing threats and delivering ultimatums might be the easy road, it never takes you very far. In a world of increasing complexity, the true measure of foreign policy strength is the ability to effectively manage differences. And I do note that, we've got over 1 million Australians of Chinese origin who all contribute very productively and for many years to our rich multicultural society. Australia, like America, for example, is a country built on migrants. My own wife is a migrant from Spain. And so, the government has been very careful since it's taken office, the Albanese government in 2022, in terms of patiently and in a calibrated and deliberate efforts to rebuild dialogue with China and stabilise the relationship between our nations. I just thought I'd mention that, given that it's so topical at the moment with the Chinese Premier going to Australia.
Since you questioned about China and also a question about NATO, this answer is simple. Quad is not NATO. Prime Minister Abe was not imagining that kind of body. He really wanted to maintain the rule of law, the democracy, our basic values, and whoever respect, what country ever who respect this kind of fundamental value, we cooperate. And this is, this is the most important thing. So if you read every joint communique, this kind of fundamental thing is repeatedly said. We cannot allow use of force, threat of force, changing status quo. We have to respect international law so that every country can have its own decision and sovereignty. So that's number one. And regarding some, you had some reference to AI, and we have lots of other critical technologies. This kind of area is one of our priority. I think Joint Secretary Naidu also working closely hard now, so I don't want to say about the Quad, but AI, Prime Minister Kishida attaches really important. So we established the Hiroshima AI process, and we are discussing among like-minded countries, and the US, India is also joined this May. So we definitely continue to have closer coordination with our friends so that our value is maintained in the use of the AI. Thank you. Japan is a very small country, so it's really hard to have this big cricket, field. So that's one of the difficulty. But I was reading a newspaper that some local community made a cricket in ground. So definitely, we are starting to practice. So, but I want you India to play baseball too.
To convince Japan that baseball was a great sport too. Also, on AI, there is a Quad Investors Network that's facilitating co-investment in critical technologies. I can't emphasize enough how much goes on in these working groups, that they meet very frequently. It's at a level where they are individuals who work for the governments, and some of them in the private sector or the public, nonprofit world, that are going to continue to work on these really critical issues. But that being said, the Quad cannot be the answer to everything. And that's one of the challenges is, what are we going to work on? What do we all agree we can manage with the resources we have, with the staffing that we have, along with all the other things that we do and all the other partnerships that all of us have, because all of us have a wealth of different partnerships and challenges that we are trying to address. So I think maybe talking to your own government about, we'd like to see this added in the Quad, how could we give input? Talking to, in forums like this is very important. Our deputy secretary will be here. He is Kirk Campbell. He is a huge supporter of the Quad and has continued to be after he moved from the White House to the State Department. So I'm sure that, getting these ideas, as we will be giving a report to him about the discussions here, for him to consider whether, that's worth talking to all his colleagues about, his advisors, as well as if we can do this. As far as what you've raised about the United States and plastics, I'm not going to tell you that I am going to be able to move anything, but the United States has for many years, at many levels, been working on issues to deal with climate change, what our responsibilities are, what we can do. As you probably know, it's not a process that happens overnight. Everyone is not in agreement with how the government should move forward. And it will continue to be something that's very, very important to us. At the State Department, we have a special envoy for climate issues, and we will continue to focus on it. But how much progress will be made? We have our goals that we've committed to, which I think we're in line to achieve, but it's not going to be probably a panacea, and I think it's never going to be as much as people want us to do.
Just to supplement a bit, I think AI is a conversation that is already happening within the Quad, and I think the US has done a lot in this area, particularly at the United Nations, where they moved in a resolution on AI and responsible AI, and we had joined the United States in sponsoring and supporting this resolution. Within the Quad framework also, we are looking at AI, and I think we are looking at high-level principles of responsible AI. This is an area where we are working on. Mention of Quad being an Asian NATO. This is good criticism. The more criticism that comes in this way shows that the Quad is working. So we take that with pride. Others getting excited about Quad is good. So if somebody wants to call Quad an Asian NATO, it just definitely conveys the meaning that we are doing something good, and we take that with pride. No apprehensions on our side. The whole issue of Security Council reform, within the Quad, we have a multilateral working group which looks at this subject. But definitely, the Quad is not the area where Security Council reforms can happen. This is a process which is run at the United Nations through a process called as the Intergovernmental Negotiations, the IGN process. It's a different process, but definitely, as friends and as members of the United Nations, the multilateral grouping within the Quad offers us an opportunity to discuss what is currently happening at the UN in this particular area. So it helps us to coordinate some of our positions. I just wanted to reflect on the training bit on diplomats. This is definitely not something that we aren't focused on. It is something to look at. But what we are trying to do within the Quad is to focus on the next generation, youth. How can the youth be excited about Quad? Because of the values for which the Quad stands for, I think what we did in partnership with ORF is to bring in 50 young fellows as part of the Raisina Dialogue. So we had, for the very first time, 50 young scholars from all over the world, particularly the Indo-Pacific, come to Delhi, spend about 10 days and have a very rigorous program. And we're very thankful to ORF for doing this. So we would like to continue this going forward. So we also, for the very first time, had the Quad think tanks. We had leading think tanks from each of the Quad partner countries come to Delhi, and we had a separate program for them. So I think the messaging of Quad is very, very important. Let me tell you that this is a grouping that's not in for competition. I think we are beyond competition. This is a group of like-minded countries coming together who respect certain values, and these values are increasingly becoming shot in this world of ours, which is increasingly getting fragmented geopolitically. So in such a state of affairs, four very different countries, but like-minded plurilateral democracies coming together and discussing issues. We are at a very different economic stage. India is a very, very different country. We are a developing country within this grouping. So it is important for sometimes India to also share how does the global south look at developmental issues. So there are conversations are happening. So these conversations are good. I don't think we have a siloed approach to any issue. It's a very open grouping. I think we feel comfortable being a part of this group because our conversations started from just about 6 subjects. Today we are dealing with over 16 different areas, and please give Quad some time. It's a very young grouping, and the kind of areas we are discussing, deliberating and negotiating, I think this will have far-reaching impact, primarily developmental. It will be a game changer. So that is what I can say about Quad. Thanks.
I have very last few minutes, so last round, and I know that this side has not been given the due, so I'll
Hello, my name is Gayatri. I'm an undergraduate student of international relations at Shivnad University. I also have a China question. So keeping in mind that all the member states have points of contention with China, and also that the Quad is largely perceived as a grouping that is made to balance and counter China's rise in the region, I wanted to know what kind of effect or added effect the Quad might have had bilaterally with China in bilateral relationship. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I am Avi Shukla. I am representing ECB Sustainable Youth Foundation. So, considering the increasing complexities and strategic challenges in the Indo-Pacific region, particularly with regard to China's assertive maritime posture, do the Quad countries have plans to expand or intensify joint security exercises like the Malabar series in the Bay of Bengal? And if so, could you provide any insights into upcoming exercises or new areas of focus collaborations? Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Mitamura from NHK Japan. My question is almost same as him. So I understand that the Quad is not to push the competition, but on the other hand, to protect, ensure the democracy in the room of the orders, international orders. So is there anything the four countries will do intensify the security cooperation in near future? That is my question. Thank you.
My name is Karni Singh. I work with a large cement company. So I was wondering that, in all the talks around Quad, at least 3 minutes of time is spent explaining how we are not in competition, that we are transparent, and we are not, those kind of things, which is surprising that it has to come from four very large democracies. Why are we, or why is the Quad at such a high level or some sort of a stress to point out these very basic things? After all, it's well known in international politics that there can be groupings and there are several groupings, etc. So that's just one. The second is that the Joint Secretary pointed out that it's a young group and that there should be some patience and some time, etc. But I was wondering if, in stock market, there is this thing that you need to invest in companies which have a long runway. So does Quad have a long runway and big skies, or is it a very, very long runway?
Hi, my name is Tejas. I'm from Carnegie, India. I focus on space policies. So where is Quad in terms of space cooperation?
Yeah, I'm Naveen Sharma. I'm an international business and political consultant. I just have two very short questions. One is, are there any plans for establishing a permanent secretariat of Quad? And second, are there any expansion plans of including any other countries?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Charukeshi. I research on technology issues and my question pertains that domain. I know there's a focus that Quad has on cooperating in technology, but the fact is that there are differing capabilities when it comes to individual partners that may influence their national positions and also their contribution to the group. What is the thinking within the group on leveraging these different capabilities, and could that be a hindrance in expanding their contribution in the region?
Good morning, everyone. I am Apur, undergraduate at studying economics at the University. We have seen increasingly that Quad member countries have emphasized time and time again that it is not an anti-China grouping. But we have also seen that Quad member countries come closer when there's increasing assertiveness of China in the region, in the South China Sea. So why is that the case? And also, Quad is not as a formalized grouping as G7 is or G20 is. So why not give it a formalized alliance structure so that more partnerships can be built in the region around that? And also, why is there a wiggle room? Why is India reluctant and Australia reluctant to give it a formal alliance structure?
Regarding the geopolitical situation in and around India, and everybody knows that, of course, China is creating critical technologies, and we are, of course, forever at threat of hacking our critical infrastructure. Does India, as an individual, of course, is looking into it, but Quad being a part of the developed nations, are you looking into that side, that what will happen in case, because combats these days are not face-to-face combats anymore. Armies are not fighting. A war is being fought at various, like economies can be impacted. You can have critical infrastructure hit. So how do you plan Quad as a group, and of course, India as an individual also, since you are here, Mr. Naidu, how do we look into these? Because the tensions are increasing by every day. Taiwan is being surrounded one day. Something is happening in the Indian Ocean the other day. So
questions, but maybe I should only answer two. The one is Quad affecting our bilateral relation with China, or what's the relation with each other? So this is a difficult question, but my simple answer is that these two are different things. So with our bilateral relation with China, China is a neighbor, so we have lots of issues to settle or to tackle. But we do through using our bilateral channel. And the Quad, what we are doing is, we are safeguarding like international order. As I said, I've been repeatedly saying that the international, rule of law. And so this is, we need to do regardless of what is happening with China. And we believe maintaining this value is an important thing. And all the activity we are promoting through the Quad is for the benefit of regional partners. And this, we should be doing what is, regardless of what is said by China and so forth. So this is my simple answer. And regarding, this South China Sea issues, basically the same tone. I think in the Quad, we have been, if you read the past statement, there are lots of statements regarding the importance of, abiding by the rule of international law, including the United Nations and Law of the Sea Convention. And so to issuing the strong message that we do not allow use of force or threat of force, changing status quo is very important thing. So we will continue to do because this is, Quad should be a force of good, and we should maintain the international order. So this is my simple answer on these two questions.
You have to remember that one of the reasons that we have formed a group is that we feel very strongly about things like preserving the international, the international order and peace and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific. So those are fundamental things that undergird the Quad. About the question as far as, should the Quad expand? I don't think that anyone has said we want to exclude other countries. I feel like everyone is open to discussion about whether the Quad should expand, when should the Quad expand, how should the Quad expand. But we don't want to rush into things. We have a lot right now that we're dealing with. As my Indian colleague said, we've gone from six working groups to like 16. So layering on top, we don't want the Quad to implode under the weight of all the expectations and all of that either. So I don't see it having a permanent secretariat. I think the way it's working now is working for all the countries. If it would happen to expand, that would probably be a issue we would revisit. So
I'll just stick to the top line point. There was a lot in the 7 or 8 questions that were asked. I can only really rehearse what I said earlier and refer to the comments that the 3 other panellists have made about what the Quad is trying to do. I think that, we're happy with what the Quad has done since our host year, the summit last year, rather, in May. I think the Quad is delivering now. It's important that we communicate clearly to the region about what we're doing. We demonstrate that we are delivering for nations across the Indo-Pacific. It's a very important body. The fact that, there have been 5 or 6 leaders meeting and about that number of foreign ministers, PMs travelling overseas, FMs travelling overseas, that's something that is thought about very carefully. So it's a grouping that the Australian government takes very seriously, and we're looking forward to working in close cooperation with our partners over the coming months, including, as we've said, a leaders' summit and a foreign ministers' meeting. So perhaps I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you. Take a bunch of questions. Somebody talked about a secretariat. Look, the G20 doesn't have a secretariat. We've just done a presidency in India and we managed it. So I don't think secretariat very well. Rather. It was the largest ever conducted G20. 250 meetings in 60 cities. So that itself all without a secretariat. So you don't need a secretariat to run a grouping. I think the foreign ministries have divisions like how we operate in MEA, and there's a lot of officers who are working on it. So the structure is there and it works. So a secretariat, is perhaps not needed. The secretariat doesn't ensure the success of any organization. So I think the success lies in the like-mindedness of the partners in the group and what they bring to the table. And it is the conversations that we have that matter a lot. And we see where to pick up the strings and how to take it forward. So that makes the difference. Somebody said that, why do you have to keep saying that the Quad does this? Are we antagonizing any particular country? No, not at all. I think in the morning you heard the four of us make statements. Did we mention the name of the country that you're talking about? None of us did. It is you who are mentioning it, not us. So I think I threw this back at you. We don't think this is competition. We've come here because we genuinely feel that we have tremendously great bilateral ties with each other. And it makes it easy for us to convene and discuss topics of interest. So I don't think the Quad is not a startup. We are not in the business of looking at a private equity firm to take us to an IPO. So don't compare us to a stock market. We are not in that business at all. I think the four Quad partners coming together will make markets work and stock markets shoot up. So that's going to happen. On technology front, yes, we are discussing issues. When it comes to technologies, see, partners come together not for ordinary technologies. We look at, say, for example, today, critical and emerging technologies. For example, critical minerals is an area of conversation. We have a grouping that looks at this. For example, India doesn't have rare earth mines. We have found a few mines, but mining rare earths is a highly polluting industry. So naturally, you have to get out. We have found a few mines in Jammu and Kashmir for lithium ion, but extracting rare earths, minerals out of it's a highly polluting industry. So you have to be ready for that also. So, but the idea is just not extracting, say, lithium ion from, say, lithium ion brines or spodumene, mineral from the rocks. The idea is, do you have the technologies to process them into end products? So these are the conversations we're already having. Our friends in Australia and Japan has some good technologies in graphite, magnesium. Australia is known for its mines. And so these are conversations that are already happening. And I don't think we are averse to that. We're discussing about open radio access network as an alternative for telecom technologies. We are looking at trusted vendors who can operate such technologies. Australia is doing, and US are doing some tremendous work in the Pacific as far as undersea cabling is concerned. So there is a lot of discussions around various aspects of technologies. How will this all translate and where does this take us? This is a matter of how we kind of take these discussions forward. But technology is a very important element. Somebody did talk about, the Carnegie question was on space. Yes, we are there is a space grouping. We are looking at how do we assist countries using remote sensing technologies. Is it possible to have archival satellite data to help countries to predict weather patterns? So this is something that we're looking at. We're also looking at space situational awareness. We have a lot of dialogues on this subject. So space is a very important segment of Quad cooperation. So it is a grouping that meets regularly, and the US has recently led the space dialogue of Quad partners. So this is a very important area for us. I don't know if I have missed out on any, but I think Thanks for this wonderful conversation. And I look forward to kind of, see if we have any other platforms to discuss Quad. Thanks.
And I mean, this is of course a special year for the Quad, as our report says. This is we have taken the December 2004 as the inflection point. The arc from December 2004 to 2024 has been a very interesting one and a very important one. And we have seen the evolution of Quad in ways that I think was exemplified by the comments of the speakers. But also, given the fact that India would be hosting the Quad Leaders Summit, this is also an important point to think about, and where the Quad is going. And from our perspective and from the perspective of the partner states, what more needs to be done. ORF as an institution, of course, is involved, as Mr. Naidu said, in a number of ways, both research-wise as well as looking at how we can work together in institutionalizing some of the aspects that were discussed here. And once again, thank you to Satu for joining us for this, and East West Center and his team for joining us for this project. And we look forward to having such conversations through the year as this as our Leaders Summit also comes closer and we have more intense engagement. And it's wonderful to see so many youngsters joining this conversation. So thank you all for joining us this afternoon, and thank you, Excellencies, for joining us. Please join us for light refreshments.